Three women go down to Mexico one night to celebrate college graduation. They get drunk and wake up in jail, only to find that they are to be executed in the morning, though none of them can remember what they did the night before. The first one, a redhead, is strapped in the electric chair and is asked if she has any last words. She says, "I just graduated from Trinity Bible College and believe in the almighty power of God to intervene on behalf of the innocent." They throw the switch and nothing happens. They all immediately fall to the floor on their knees, beg for forgiveness, and release her. The second one, a brunette, is strapped in and gives her last words. "I just graduated from the Harvard School of Law, and I believe in the power of justice to intervene on the part of the innocent." They throw the switch, and again, nothing happens. Again, they all immediately fall to their knees, beg for forgiveness, and release her. The last one, a blonde, is strapped in and says, "Well, I'm from the University of Texas and just graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. And I'll tell you right now, you all aren't going to electrocute anybody if you don't plug this thing in."
One night, 4 MBA students were out till late at night and didn't study for the test, which was scheduled for the next day. In the morning, they thought of a plan. They made themselves look as dirty and weird as they could with grease and dirt. They then went up to the dean and said that they had gone out to a wedding last night, and on their return the tire of their car burst and they had to push the car all the way back, and that they were in no condition to appear for the test. The dean was a just person, so he said that you can have the retest after 3 days. They said they will be ready by that time. On the third day, they appeared before the dean. The dean said that this was a special condition test. All 4 were required to sit in separate classrooms for the test. They all agreed, as they had prepared well in the last 3 days. The test consisted of 2 questions with a total of 100 marks. Question 1, write down your name, 2 marks. Question 2, which tire burst, 98 marks.
A man goes into the hospital for a vasectomy. Before the procedure, a very attractive nurse comes in and takes his vitals, then tells him to take all of his clothes off. When he is fully undressed, she instructs him to lie down on the table. The man obeys. The nurse then takes all of her clothes off and climbs on top and has her way with him. Upon the completion of the act, the man catches his breath and asks what that was all about. The nurse informs the patient that studies have shown that before a vasectomy, if the man has an ejaculation, he will be more relaxed, and that the vasectomy is easier for the surgeon to locate and sever, thereby making the surgery safer, more efficient, and quicker. The nurse then wheels the patient to the operating room. While they are going down the hall, the patient looks through a window to the right and sees 6 men in a room masturbating. Curious, the man asks, "What are they doing in there?" The nurse responds, "They are getting vasectomies too, but you have Blue Cross and they have Obamacare." A college's student body is composed of the sons and daughters of the very rich, who could not meet the academic requirements of any other college. Lo and behold, the college basketball team wins every game and dominates their league. All this success is due to one amazing player, a cross between Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. This kid is terrific. The player and the team become the center of nationwide media attention. The student body is thrilled. Now, the NCAA goes to the college and asks for proof of this player's academic eligibility. The college administration promises such documentation in a few days. The faculty works night and day coaching the student for the crucial test. The day of the public examination arrives, and the entire student body is there to support their star player. A professor stands and announces the first question. How much is 5 and 2? The student frowns in deep concentration. He thinks, he sweats, and he shakes with effort.
At last, he shouts the answer, 7. The entire student body rises, and as a single voice they cry, "Give him another chance! Give him another chance!"
A nursing assistant, a floor nurse, and a charge nurse from a small nursing home were taking a lunch break in the break room. In walks a lady dressed in silk scarves and wearing large polished stone jewelry. "I am Gina the Great," stated the lady. "I am so pleased with the way you have taken care of my aunt that I will now grant the next 3 wishes." With a wave of her hand and a puff of smoke, the room was filled with flowers, fruit, and bottles of drink, proving that she did have the power to grant wishes before any of the nurses could think otherwise. The nurses quickly argued among themselves as to which one would ask for the first wish. Speaking up, the nursing assistant wished first. "I wish I were on a tropical island beach with single well-built men feeding me fruit and tending to my every need." With a puff of smoke, the nursing assistant was gone. The floor nurse went next. "I wish I were rich and retired and spending my days in my own warm cabin at a ski resort with well-groomed men feeding me cocoa and donuts." With a puff of smoke, she too was gone. "Now, what is the last wish?" asked the lady. The charge nurse said, "I want those 2 back on the floor at the end of the lunch break."
2 Tennessee rednecks, Bubba and Jim Bob, are sitting at their favorite bar, drinking beer. Bubba turns to Jim Bob and says, "You know, I'm tired of going through life without an education. Tomorrow, I think I'll go to the community college and sign up for some classes." Jim Bob thinks it's a good idea, and the 2 leave. The next day, Bubba goes down to the college and meets the dean of admissions, who signs him up for the 4 basic classes: math, English, history, and logic. "Logic?" Bubba says. "What's that?" The dean says, "I'll show you. Do you own a weed eater?" "Yeah." "Then logically speaking, because you own a weed eater, I think that you would have a yard." "That's true, I do have a yard." "I'm not done," the dean says. "Because you have a yard, I think logically that you would have a house." "Yes, I do have a house." "And because you have a house, I think that you might logically have a family." "I have a family." "I'm not done yet. Because you have a family, then logically you must have a wife." "Yes, I do have a wife." "And because you have a wife, then logic tells me you must be a heterosexual." "I am a heterosexual. That's amazing. You were able to find out all of that because I have a weed eater." Excited to take the class now, Bubba shakes the dean's hand and leaves to go meet Jim Bob at the bar. He tells Jim Bob about his classes and how he has signed up for math, English, history, and logic. "Logic?" Jim Bob says. "What's that?" Bubba says, "I'll show you. Do you have a weed eater?" "No." "Then you're a queer."
A guy is stranded on an island with only a Doberman and a pig for company. There's plenty of food and water, and the weather is beautiful, so he's doing all right. But after a few months, he gets lonely. The pig starts to look more and more attractive, with soft pink flesh and round buttocks. But every time this poor guy makes an advance towards the pig, the Doberman snarls at him and once almost bit his leg. Very frustrating. One day, the guy sees a speck on the horizon, so he swims out there, and it turns out to be a dinghy, cast adrift, and in the bottom of the boat is a beautiful woman, unconscious. He drags her to shore and brings her into his hut, and slowly nurses her back to health. Finally, she is well enough to walk, and she says to him, "Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. I don't know how I can ever repay you. I'll do anything for you, anything. Just name it." The guy thinks for a minute and says, "Would you mind taking my dog for a walk?" 2 doctors in practice in a small-town clinic in Bluebell had to hire a new nurse when the one they had won the lottery and quit. They interviewed Nurse Nancy and decided to hire her. She had only worked 2 days when one doctor called the other to his office and said that they would have to let Nurse Nancy go. "Why? We just hired her."
Well, I think she is dyslexic and does things backwards. I told her to give Mr. Smith 2 shots of morphine every 24 hours, but she gave him 24 shots in 2 hours and it almost killed him. I told her to give Mrs. Jones an enema every 12 hours, and she gave her 12 in 1 hour. The doctor had barely finished his reasons when the other doctor rushed out of the room. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" the doctor asked. "To see Nurse Nancy. I just instructed her to prick Mr. Hill's boil."
A big shot executive had to spend a couple of days in the hospital. He was a royal pain to the nurses because he bossed them around just like he did his staff. None of the hospital staff wanted to have anything to do with him. The head nurse was the only one who could stand up to him. She came into his room and announced, "I have to take your temperature." After complaining for several minutes, he finally settled down, crossed his arms, and opened his mouth. "No, I'm sorry," the nurse stated, "but for this reading, I can't use an oral thermometer." This started another round of complaining, but eventually he rolled over and bared his behind. After feeling the nurse insert the thermometer, he heard her announce, "I have to get something. Now you stay just like that until I get back." She leaves the door to his room open on her way out. He curses under his breath as he hears people walking past his door, laughing. After half an hour, the man's doctor comes into the room. "What's going on here?" asked the doctor. Angrily, the man answers, "What's the matter, Doc? Haven't you ever seen someone having their temperature taken?" After a pause, the doctor confesses, "Not with a carnation." A man walks into a bar and orders a drink. The bartender gives the man his drink, and the man asks, "If I show you something crazy, would you let me have free drinks for the rest of the night?" The bartender thinks for a minute and then says, "It would be something spectacular to take that offer." The man leans down and picks up a box and sets it on the bar. He opens the box, and inside is a small piano man who is only 1 foot tall and a little piano. The piano man starts playing classical music like Beethoven and Chopin. Once he finishes, the bartender is in utter disbelief. He tells the man, "You can have free drinks for the rest of the night, but only if you tell me where you got this." The man says, "In the alleyway behind your bar, there is a genie who is granting free wishes to everyone who wants them." Elated, the bartender heads behind his bar to see if it was true. A few minutes pass, and out of the alleyway erupts a cacophony of quacking. The bartender rushes back into the bar and shuts his door against the wave of thousands of ducks. He manages to secure the door and says to the man, "I think that the genie is hard of hearing because after I asked for $1,000,000, these ducks appeared by the thousands." The man chuckles and says, "Did you really think I wished for a 12-inch pianist?" A government employee sat in his office and, out of boredom, decided to see what was inside his old filing cabinet. He poked through the contents and came across an old brass lamp. "This'll look good on my mantel," he said, and took it home with him. While polishing the lamp, a genie appeared and, as usual, granted him 3 wishes. "I would like an ice-cold Coke right now." He gets his Coke and drinks it. Now that he can think more clearly, he states his second wish. "I wish to be on an island with beautiful women who find me irresistible." Suddenly, he's on an island with gorgeous women eyeing him lustfully. He tells the genie his third and last wish. "I wish I'd never have to work again." Instantly, he was back in his government office.
At a company party, the staff decided to have a little fun with their boss, who had a habit of playing serious practical jokes on everyone else. When he went to the restroom, he left his wallet behind. They searched through it and found his lotto ticket. They wrote down his numbers and called over the waitress to set up a little prank. She came back half an hour later and asked if anyone wanted to know the night's lotto numbers, then proceeded to read them out loud before setting the numbers on the table. The boss looked at the numbers, then casually pulled out his wallet and compared them. he became really silent, put his wallet back in his jacket, and sat down again, breathing really rapidly and looking totally astonished. After a couple of minutes, he pulled out his wallet and lotto ticket again and checked the numbers very carefully. Then he stood up on his chair and shouted out to the whole room, "I just want to let you all know something. I don't like any of you, and I have hated working for this company. You could all go to hell, because I've just won loads of money and I'm leaving."
A fellow had just been hired as the new CEO of a large high-tech corporation. The CEO, who was stepping down, met with him privately and presented him with 3 numbered envelopes. "Open these if you run up against a problem you don't think you can solve," he said. Well, things went along pretty smoothly, but 6 months later, sales took a downturn and he was really catching a lot of heat. About at his wit's end, he remembered the envelopes. He went to his drawer and took out the first envelope. The message read, "Blame your predecessor." The new CEO called a press conference and tactfully laid the blame at the feet of the previous CEO. Satisfied with his comments, the press and Wall Street responded positively. Sales began to pick up and the problem was soon behind him. About a year later, the company was again experiencing a slight dip in sales combined with serious product problems. Having learned from his previous experience, the CEO quickly opened the second envelope. The message read, "Reorganize." This he did, and the company quickly rebounded. After several consecutive profitable quarters, the company once again fell on difficult times. The CEO went to his office, closed the door, and opened the third envelope. The message said, "Prepare 3 envelopes." A man and woman have a great night out. The couple head back to their home and decide to continue the night in the bedroom. After a bout of amazing sex, they start cuddling and the woman starts playing with her boyfriend's balls as she always does. She continues this for a while until the boyfriend asks, "Why do you enjoy doing that so much?" She replies, "Because I miss playing with mine." A skilled nurse died and arrived before St. Peter, who explained, "We have this little policy of allowing you to choose whether you want to spend eternity in heaven or in hell." "How do I know which to choose?" she asked. "That's easy," said St. Peter. "You have to spend a day in each place before making a decision." With that, he put the nurse on an elevator and sent her down to hell. The elevator doors opened and the nurse found herself in a sunny garden where many former friends and colleagues warmly greeted her. She had a great time all day laughing and talking about old times. That night, she had an excellent supper in a fantastic restaurant. She even met the devil, who turned out to be a pretty nice guy. Before she knew it, her day in hell was over and she returned to heaven. The day in heaven was okay. She lounged around on clouds, sang, and played the harp. At the end of the day, St. Peter came and asked her for her decision. "Well, heaven was great and all," the nurse said, "but I had a better time in hell. I know it sounds strange, but I choose hell." With that, she got in the elevator and went back down. When the doors opened, she saw a desolate wasteland covered in garbage and filth. Her friends, dressed in rags, were picking up garbage and putting it in sacks. When the devil walked over, she said to him, "I don't understand. Yesterday, this place was beautiful. We had a delicious meal and a wonderful time laughing and talking." The devil smiled and said, "Yesterday, we were recruiting you. Today, you're staff." A businessman flew to Vegas for the weekend to gamble. He lost the shirt off his back and had nothing left but a quarter and the second half of his round-trip ticket. All he needed to do was somehow get to the airport, and then he'd be home free. So he went out to the front of the casino, where there was a cab waiting. He got in and explained his situation to the cabbie. He promised to send the driver money from home. He offered him his credit card numbers, his driver's license number, his address, etc. The cabbie said, "If you don't have $15, get the hell out of my cab." So the businessman was forced to hitchhike to the airport and was barely in time to catch his flight. 1 year later, the businessman, having worked long and hard to regain his financial success, returned to Vegas, and this time he won big. Feeling pretty good about himself, he went out to the front of the casino to get a cab ride back to the airport. Well, who should he see out there at the end of a long line of cabs but his old buddy, who had refused to give him a ride when he was down on his luck. The businessman thought for a moment about how he could make the guy pay for his lack of charity, and he hit on a plan. The businessman got in the first cab in the line. "How much for a ride to the airport?" he asked. $15, came the reply. "And how much for you to give me a blowjob on the way?" "What? Get the hell out of my cab." The businessman got into the back of each cab in the long line and asked the same questions with the same result. When he got to his old friend at the back of the line, he got in and asked, "How much for a ride to the airport?" The cabbie replied, $15. The businessman said, "Okay," and off they went. Then, as they drove slowly past the long line of cabs, the businessman gave a big smile and thumbs up sign to each of the other drivers. The old hotel clerk had seen hundreds of honeymooners pass through his lobby, but he had a little game he liked to play whenever newlyweds checked in. He would ask the bride about her job and make a quiet prediction about how the honeymoon would unfold. That evening, 3 couples arrived, one after the other, all glowing with post-wedding excitement. The first couple approached the desk, hand in hand. The clerk smiled warmly. "Congratulations! And what do you do for a living, miss?" "I'm a maid," the bride replied cheerfully. The clerk raised an eyebrow, smirking internally. Maids are hot. This guy's in for a great night. The second couple stepped forward. "And you, young lady?" he asked the bride. "I'm a nurse," she said with a grin. The clerk's smirk grew. Nurses, even better. This guy's definitely getting lucky. Then came the third couple. The clerk, enjoying his little game, asked once more. "I'm a high school teacher," the bride answered. The clerk frowned slightly. Teachers, they're so strict. These two will probably go straight to sleep. With that, he handed out the room keys and watched the couples head off to their respective suites. An hour later, the first groom came shuffling back down to the lobby and took a seat in the restaurant. The clerk chuckled. "Already? I thought you'd be enjoying your honeymoon." The groom sighed. "I tried, but my wife insisted on tidying up the entire room first." The clerk laughed, shaking his head. "Well, I wasn't completely wrong." Another hour passed, and the second groom appeared, looking equally frustrated. "What are you doing down here so early?" the clerk asked, amused. The groom groaned. "Every time I tried to make love to her, she just kept telling me I wasn't clean enough." The clerk stifled a laugh. Poor guy. As the night wore on, he kept an eye on the elevator, expecting the third groom to appear any minute. But hours passed. Midnight turned into 2 a.m., then 4 a.m., and still no sign of him. Finally, just before the clerk's shift ended, the third groom emerged from the elevator, looking utterly exhausted, hair a mess, shirt wrinkled, eyes barely open. "There you are," the clerk exclaimed. "Did you at least get some sleep?" The groom slumped against the counter. "Sleep?" he wheezed. "I never slept. My wife kept saying, 'We're going to do this again and again until you get it right.'"
Late one night, a masked burglar silently broke into a suburban home. Moving swiftly and methodically, he rummaged through drawers, pocketed valuables, and stuffed jewelry into a sack. But just as he was about to leave, the flick of a light switch froze him in place. Standing in the hallway were a man and a woman, both wide-eyed with shock. Before they could react, the burglar pulled out his gun. "Sit down," he ordered, pointing to 2 chairs in the living room. Trembling, the couple obeyed. The burglar quickly tied them up, making sure they were secure. With his captives restrained, he resumed looting the house. He took everything of value, cash, watches, electronics, until finally, satisfied with his haul, he turned back to the couple. "Well, it's been fun," he said smugly. "Enjoy your evening." As he moved toward the door, the man suddenly yelled out, "Wait! Please untie her! Let her go!" The burglar scoffed. "Not a chance. The longer you stay tied up, the later the cops get notified." "But please," the man begged, "I'll do anything. Just let her go." The burglar hesitated. He wasn't heartless, and the desperation in the man's voice made him pause. "Wow," he said, shaking his head.
You must really love your wife to be begging like this." The man, now in a full-blown panic, blurted out, "Not really, but she'll be home in 15 minutes."
In a groundbreaking move for workplace diversity, a major corporation hired a tribe of ex-cannibals. During orientation, the HR director gave them one firm rule. "You have full rights as employees," he said, "but under no circumstances are you allowed to eat anybody." The tribe nodded solemnly. They had left their old ways behind. For weeks, everything went smoothly. The tribe adapted well to office life, attended meetings, filled out reports, and even managed to sit through mandatory team-building exercises without biting anyone. Then, one day, the CEO called the tribal chief into his office. "Listen," the CEO began, shifting uncomfortably. "I hate to even ask this, but one of our employees has been missing for several days now. Did you, eat them?" The chief turned to his tribe and whispered a quick discussion. Then, with a firm shake of his head, he said, "No, sir, we have not eaten anybody. We've left all that behind us." The CEO squinted, clearly unconvinced, but with no proof, he sighed and let it go. "All right, I apologize for the suspicion. Get back to work." As soon as they were safely out of earshot, the chief turned to his tribe, eyes burning with fury. "All right, which one of you idiots did it?" The tribe shifted nervously. Finally, one man raised his hand. "I ate the cleaning lady," he admitted sheepishly. The chief's face turned red. With a loud smack, he slapped the man across the head. "You fool," he hissed. "We've been eating department heads, marketing executives, and efficiency consultants for weeks, and nobody noticed. But then you had to go and eat someone they'd actually miss?" One day, a man decided to retire and booked himself on a Caribbean cruise. He was having the time of his life until, of course, the ship sank. He soon found himself stranded on a deserted island with no supplies, no company, just bananas and coconuts. For 4 months, he managed to survive, but he was getting desperate. One day, as he lay on the beach, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen rowed up to the shore. In disbelief, he asked, "Where did you come from? How did you get here?" She smiled and replied, "I rowed over from the other side of the island where I landed after my cruise ship sank." "That's amazing," he exclaimed. "You were lucky to have a rowboat wash up with you." She chuckled. "Oh, this boat. I made it myself using raw materials from the island. The oars are whittled from gum tree branches, the bottom is woven from palm tree branches, and the sides and stern are from an eucalyptus tree." The man, now wide-eyed, asked, "But where did you get the tools?" She grinned. "On the south side of the island, there's an unusual stratum of alluvial rock. I fired it in my kiln, melted it into ductile iron, and used it to make tools, which I then used to make the hardware." The man could hardly believe his ears. "Let's go to my place," she said. "I'll give you a tour." A short time later, after rowing over, the man stared in awe as they approached a long stone walkway leading up to a cabin and a treehouse. The woman expertly tied the boat with a hand-woven hemp rope while the man was still in shock. "Please, come in," she said, and after they entered the house, she casually offered, "Would you like a drink?" No, thank you," he blurted out. "I can't take another drop of coconut juice." She smiled and winked. "It's not coconut juice. I have a still. How would you like a tropical spritz?" He tried to hide his amazement as she served him. After a bit of conversation, the woman said, "I'm going to slip into something more comfortable. You can take a shower and shave if you'd like. This razor in the bathroom cabinet upstairs." Without questioning anything, the man went upstairs and found the razor. It was made from tortoise bone, with 2 shells honed to a sharp edge and fastened inside a swivel mechanism. Amazing, he thought. What's next?
When he returned, she greeted him, wearing nothing but small flowers on vines, strategically placed. She smelled faintly of gardenias. She beckoned him to sit down next to her. "Tell me," she asked suggestively, "we've both been alone here for months. You must have been lonely. When was the last time you played around?" The man's heart raced. He swallowed nervously, trying to process what she was saying. "You mean you?" His eyes widened. "You've built a golf course too?"